was a simple math problem, but the numbers didn't add up. On one side of the table, a prosecutor offered 5 years in exchange for a signature. On the other side, a man named Marcus sat with his hands folded, knowing he hadn't committed the crime. He believed in the system. He believed that the truth was a shield. So he pushed the paper away. He chose a trial. And for the crime of asserting his innocence, the system didn't give him 5 years. It gave him 40. This is the trial penalty. We are taught from a young age that the courtroom is a place where facts are weighed and justice is dispensed. We believe that if you are innocent, you have nothing to fear. But there is a mechanism in our legal system, a quiet lever that prosecutors pull that turns that belief into a trap. They call it the trial penalty. It is the massive difference between the sentence you are offered if you plead guilty and the sentence you receive if you dare to go to trial and lose. It is a tax on your constitutional rights. Today we are going to walk through the story of a man we'll call Marcus. Marcus isn't a career criminal. He's a father, a mechanic, a neighbor. His story exposes a terrifying reality, that the justice system is no longer about finding the truth. It is about processing cases. And if you disrupt that process by claiming you are innocent, the system will crush you. This was a wrongful conviction, but it didn't start with a crime. It started with a calculation. Marcus Jamison was 42 years old when his life ended. Not when he died, when the police arrived. He owned a small auto repair shop on the south side, Martinez Auto Repair, named after his grandfather who taught him everything he knew about engines. The shop had been there for 18 years. Same location, same cracked concrete floor, same coffee pot that made terrible coffee, but nobody ever threw away. Marcus worked 6 days a week, opened at 7, closed at 6, sometimes later if a customer needed their car for work the next morning. He had 2 employees, Jimmy, who'd been with him for 9 years, and Darnell, who started fresh out of vocational school 3 years prior. Marcus had 3 kids, 2 daughters and a son, ages 17, 14, and 11. He coached his son's basketball team, attended every one of his daughter's choir concerts, fixed neighbors' cars for free when they couldn't afford the parts. He wasn't rich. He wasn't poor. He was steady. That's the word people used about Marcus. Steady. March 14, 2018, 5:47 a.m. Marcus was asleep when 6 federal agents broke down his front door. Not knocked. Broke. The crash of splintering wood. Shouting. Lights so bright they felt like physical force. "Federal agents! Search warrant! Get on the ground!" Marcus's wife screamed. His youngest daughter started crying from her bedroom. Marcus stumbled out of bed disoriented, hands already raised because that's what you do when men with guns are yelling. They put him face down on the floor, hands behind his back, zip ties cutting into his wrists. His wife was pulled from the bedroom. His daughters herded into the living room. His son, 17 and terrified, pushed against the wall. Marcus kept asking, "What is this about? What did I do?" Nobody answered. They tore through his house for 2 hours, overturned mattresses, emptied drawers, threw tools from his garage onto the lawn. They didn't find what they were looking for because it wasn't there. But that didn't matter. At 7:52 a.m., Marcus was arrested and charged with conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. He'd never touched methamphetamine in his life. They took Marcus to a federal building downtown, put him in a room with 2 DEA agents, Agent Corwin and Agent Hayes. Corwin did most of the talking. Hayes took notes. "Marcus, we know what you've been doing. I don't know what you're talking about. We have a witness, someone close to you. They've told us everything." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Who? That's not important. What's important is that you cooperate. Tell us what you know, and this gets easier." "I don't know anything." "That's not what we're hearing." The interrogation lasted 6 hours. They offered him water once, bathroom break twice, no food. They showed him surveillance photos, his shop, his truck, him talking to people he knew. "Do you know this person?" "That's Terrell. He's a customer." "Customer for what?" "I fixed his transmission." "That's all?" "That's all." They kept circling, same questions, different angles. "We're giving you a chance here, Marcus. You help us, we help you. You don't help us. This gets bad for you. Marcus didn't understand. He hadn't done anything. But here's what Marcus didn't know. Terrell Simmons, the man whose transmission he'd fixed 3 months ago, had been arrested with 12 pounds of methamphetamine in his trunk. When federal agents arrested Terrell, they gave him a choice: 20 years or cooperation. Terrell cooperated. He told them Marcus was part of the distribution network. It wasn't true, but Terrell needed names. And Marcus's name was the one he gave. Terrell Simmons had been selling drugs for 6 years. Marcus didn't know that. Marcus just knew Terrell needed a transmission fixed and paid in cash. They'd spoken maybe 10 times total. Small talk, weather, the Pistons, nothing substantial. But when federal prosecutors told Terrell they had enough evidence to send him away for 2 decades, Terrell did what people do when facing catastrophic loss. He saved himself. He told prosecutors that Marcus was his supplier's mechanic, that Marcus let dealers use his shop to store product, that Marcus knew everything. None of it was true, but federal prosecutors didn't care about truth. They cared about building cases up the supply chain. Terrell's testimony, even if fabricated, gave them enough for a warrant, and a warrant gave them Marcus. Terrell got 18 months in a minimum security facility. Marcus would get something very different. Marcus's court-appointed attorney was named Patricia Reeves. She was 38 years old. She'd been a public defender for 11 years. She carried a caseload of 93 active clients. That's a problem. The American Bar Association recommends a maximum of 50 cases per attorney. Patricia had nearly double that. She met with Marcus for the first time 4 days after his arrest. The meeting lasted 27 minutes. Mr. Jamison, I've reviewed your case. The government has one cooperating witness, Terrell Simmons, who claims you were involved in a drug operation. They have surveillance photos showing you in contact with Mr. Simmons. They're charging you with conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. That carries a mandatory minimum of 10 years. I didn't do this. I understand, but here's the situation. The government is offering a plea deal. She slid a document across the table. 5 years, you'd serve about 4 with good behavior. Out by the time you're 46. Marcus stared at the paper. I didn't do this, he repeated. Patricia's voice was gentle but firm. I believe you, but belief doesn't win trials. And if you go to trial and lose, you're looking at significantly more time. How much more? The mandatory minimum is 10, but with enhancements, they can push for 15, 20, even more. Enhancements for what? For going to trial. This is where the system shows its true face. The plea offer, 5 years, wasn't based on Marcus's guilt or innocence. It was based on efficiency. If Marcus signed the plea, the prosecutor checked a box, the case closed, the conviction statistics went up. If Marcus insisted on a trial, the prosecutor would have to work, prepare witnesses, present evidence, spend time, and the system doesn't like that. So they build in a punishment for making them work. It's called the trial penalty. If Marcus went to trial and lost, the prosecutor wouldn't just ask for the mandatory minimum. They'd stack charges, add enhancements, turn 10 years into 20, or 30, or 40. It wasn't about justice, it was about incentive structure. Sign here, get 5 years. Fight, get buried. Patricia explained it clearly. Marcus, if you reject this plea, the prosecutor will file what's called a superseding indictment. They'll add charges. They'll add enhancements. By the time they're done, you could be facing a mandatory minimum of 25 years. For something I didn't do. For exercising your right to trial. That can't be legal. It is. It's called prosecutorial discretion. Marcus sat in silence. His wife was at home with the kids. The shop was closed. Bills were piling up. The mortgage was due. 5 years was devastating, but 5 years meant he'd see his kids graduate, see them get married, meet his grandchildren. 25 years meant he'd be 67 when he got out. His youngest daughter would be 36. His life would be over. Marcus looked at Patricia. If I sign that, I'm admitting to something I didn't do. I understand. My kids will think I'm a drug dealer. I understand. But I didn't do it. I fixed a guy's transmission. That's it. I can't plead guilty to a crime I didn't commit. Patricia closed the file. Then we go to trial. Will we win? Patricia didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was careful. We'll do our best, but I need you to understand the risks. Marcus understood the risks. What he didn't understand was that the system had already decided the outcome. This is the moment where the system stops looking for justice and starts looking for efficiency. Marcus refused the deal, and the system began its retaliation. 3 weeks after Marcus rejected the plea deal, the prosecutor filed new charges. This is standard practice. It has a name, the superseding indictment. It's the government's way of saying, you wanted a trial? Here's what that costs. The original charge was conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. The new indictment added possession with intent to distribute, use of a facility in aid of drug trafficking, his auto shop, money laundering because he deposited cash payments from customers, firearm enhancement under 18 U.S.C. Section 924C. That last one is critical. The firearm enhancement adds a mandatory minimum of 5 years, on top of everything else, if a gun is involved in the crime. Marcus didn't have a gun. The raid found no weapons. But the law doesn't require Marcus to possess the weapon. It only requires that a weapon be used in furtherance of the drug crime. The prosecutor argued that because Terrell, the cooperating witness, sometimes carried a gun, and because Terrell claimed Marcus was involved in the operation, Marcus was legally responsible for that gun. That's not possible, you might say. But it is, and it happens every day. Before the superseding indictment, mandatory minimum, 10 years. Likely sentence if convicted, 12 to 15 years. After the superseding indictment, mandatory minimum, 25 years. Drug charges plus firearm enhancement. Likely sentence if convicted, 35 to 40 years. All because Marcus said no to the plea deal. Meanwhile, Terrell Simmons, who actually sold drugs, who actually possessed methamphetamine, who actually carried a weapon, signed his plea agreement. He got 18 months. He'd be out before Marcus's trial even ended. The prosecutor handling Marcus's case was named Richard Bellamy. He'd been an assistant U.S. attorney for 16 years. He had a conviction rate of 96%. That's because he almost never went to trial. 98% of his cases ended in plea deals. Marcus was part of the 2% who refused. In a later interview, years after Marcus's conviction, a journalist asked Bellamy about the trial penalty. Bellamy denied it existed. We charge what the evidence supports, he said. If a defendant chooses to exercise their right to trial, that's their choice. But we're under no obligation to limit our charges just because someone wants their day in court. Translation: refused the deal, faced the maximum. It wasn't personal, it was systematic. Bellamy had quotas, conviction statistics, performance reviews based on case outcomes. Every trial was a risk. Every acquittal was a failure. So the system was designed to eliminate trials. Offer a deal, make the deal attractive enough to accept, and make the alternative terrifying enough to avoid. Marcus chose the alternative. The trial began 8 months after Marcus's arrest. On the prosecution side, 3 attorneys, 2 paralegals, unlimited resources, FBI agents available for testimony. On the defense side, Patricia, 1 binder, a notepad. That's a problem. Public defenders are overwhelmed, underfunded, and outmatched. Patricia had 4 other trials that month. She was preparing Marcus's case between court appearances, client meetings, and emergencies. The prosecution had spent 8 months building their case. Patricia had spent 8 months managing 90 other cases while trying to save Marcus. The trial lasted 6 days. The prosecution's star witness was Terrell Simmons. He took the stand on day 2, wore a suit, spoke clearly, looked directly at the jury. He testified that Marcus was part of a drug distribution network, that Marcus let dealers use his shop, that Marcus knew exactly what was happening. The prosecutor asked, how do you know this? Terrell answered, because I was there. I saw it. Patricia cross-examined him. She pointed out his cooperation agreement, the reduced sentence, the incentive to lie. But the jury heard what the prosecution wanted them to hear, a witness with first-hand knowledge. What the jury didn't know, Terrell had given 3 different versions of his story, first to the DEA, then to the prosecutor, then at trial. The details kept changing, but the core accusations stayed the same. Patricia tried to introduce the inconsistencies. The judge ruled most of it inadmissible. The prosecution also called FBI agents who testified about surveillance photos. We observed Mr. Jamison meeting with known drug dealers. Who were these dealers? Terrell Simmons and others. What did you observe them discussing? We couldn't hear the conversations, but the meetings occurred. This is how cases are built. Association becomes evidence. Proximity becomes guilt. Patricia advised Marcus not to testify. If you take the stand, they'll twist everything you say. They'll make you look like you're lying even when you're telling the truth. Marcus wanted to testify. He wanted to tell the jury, "I'm innocent. I fixed cars. That's all." But Patricia was right. The prosecution would have destroyed him. So Marcus sat silent, and the jury interpreted silence as guilt. The jury deliberated for 11 hours across 2 days. When they returned, the foreman stood. The judge asked, "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." "On the charge of conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine, how do you find?" "Guilty." Marcus's world collapsed. He didn't hear the rest. Guilty on all counts. Guilty. 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 His wife sobbed in the gallery. His daughter, now 18, sat frozen. Marcus felt nothing, just a ringing in his ears, just the sensation of falling while sitting still. Sentencing occurred 6 weeks later. The judge, a man named Harold Crane, had been on the bench for 23 years. He'd sentenced thousands of people. He looked at Marcus. "Mr. Jamison, you have been convicted by a jury of your peers. These are serious crimes with serious consequences. What troubles this court is your continued refusal to accept responsibility. Even now, you maintain your innocence. That shows a lack of remorse. It shows a disregard for this process." This is the final insult. Marcus was punished not just for the crime he didn't commit, but for refusing to lie about it. The judge continued. "The mandatory minimum sentence is 25 years. However, given the nature of the offense and your lack of remorse, this court sentences you to 40 years in federal prison." 40 years. Marcus was 42 years old. He'd be 82 when he got out. If he lived that long, Marcus was sent to a maximum security federal prison in Pennsylvania. He'd never been arrested before, never been in a fight, never spent a night in jail. Now he was surrounded by men serving life sentences for murder, for assault, for crimes Marcus couldn't imagine committing. He was a non-violent offender in a violent world. He learned quickly. Keep your head down. Don't make eye contact. Don't take anything from anyone. Don't owe anyone anything. He worked in the prison laundry, earned 12 cents an hour, sent what he could to his wife. It wasn't enough. His wife, Carmen, tried to hold everything together. She sold the house within a year, couldn't afford the mortgage on her salary alone. She moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with the kids, worked double shifts as a nurse, visited Marcus once a month, a 6-hour drive each way. The visits were the worst part. Sitting across from each other, a glass partition between them, phones to their ears, talking about nothing because there was nothing to say. "How are you?" "I'm okay. How are the kids?" "They're okay." But they weren't okay. His son Elijah graduated high school in 2019. Marcus missed it. Elijah got a scholarship to community college. Marcus missed that too. Elijah got married in 2023. Marcus wasn't there. His daughter Aaliyah graduated high school in 2021, went to nursing school like her mother, got her license in 2024. Marcus saw none of it. His youngest, Zoe, was 11 when Marcus went to prison. She's 21 now. She doesn't visit anymore. Hasn't since she was 16. She doesn't remember him as a father. She remembers him as the man in the orange jumpsuit on the other side of the glass. Carmen filed for divorce in 2025. Marcus signed the papers without contest. What was the point? He'd be in prison for another 33 years. Marcus filed his first appeal in 2019. He argued ineffective assistance of counsel, argued that Patricia hadn't had adequate time or resources to prepare his defense. The appellate court denied it. They ruled that Patricia's representation, while imperfect, met the constitutional minimum. That's the standard. Not good, not adequate, just not unconstitutionally bad. Marcus filed again in 2021. argued prosecutorial misconduct, argued that the superseding indictment was retaliatory, denied. The court ruled that prosecutors have broad discretion in charging decisions. Marcus filed again in 2023, argued that Terrell's testimony was perjured, denied. The court ruled that credibility determinations are the jury's job. They'd believed Terrell. Case closed. Each appeal cost money Marcus didn't have. His family scraped together funds. Friends donated. Community fundraisers. It wasn't enough. By 2026, Marcus had exhausted his appeals. He'd been in prison for 8 years. He had 32 left to serve. Marcus isn't alone. In the federal system, 97% of cases end in plea deals. Only 3% go to trial. Of that 3%, the conviction rate is 83%. Why? Because the only people who go to trial are either obviously innocent or facing sentences so catastrophic that a trial is their only hope. The system is designed this way. Trials are expensive, time-consuming, risky for prosecutors. So the system incentivizes pleas, makes the offer attractive, makes the alternative terrifying. And if you refuse, if you exercise your constitutional right to trial, you pay. The trial penalty isn't a bug, it's a feature. In 2027, 9 years after Marcus's conviction, the Midwest Innocence Project received his case file. An intern named Sophie Chen was assigned to review it. She noticed something. Terrell Simmons's testimony at trial didn't match his initial statements to the DEA. She requested the original DEA interview notes. They were never turned over to the defense. That's called a Brady violation. Prosecutors are constitutionally required to turn over evidence that could help the defense. The DEA notes showed that Terrell initially said he didn't know Marcus well, that he'd only met him a few times, that Marcus had no involvement in drug sales. Only after prosecutors offered Terrell the plea deal did his story change. The notes also showed that DEA agents had doubts about Terrell's credibility. One agent wrote, "Simmons is lying to save himself." That evidence was never given to Patricia, never shown to the jury. The Innocence Project filed a motion to vacate Marcus's conviction in January 2028. The prosecutor fought it, argued that the evidence was inconclusive, that even if the notes had been disclosed, the outcome wouldn't have changed. The judge disagreed. On March 9, 2028, 10 years after his arrest, Marcus Jamison's conviction was vacated. He was released on March 12th. No apology, no compensation, just a release form and a bus ticket. Marcus walked out of prison at 52 years old. He'd gone in at 42. His hair was gray. His hands shook. He'd developed diabetes from prison food. His son Elijah picked him up. They hugged. It was awkward. They barely knew each other anymore. Marcus moved into a one-bedroom apartment provided by a re-entry program. He applied for jobs. No one hired him. A decade-old conviction, even vacated, still showed up on background checks. He tried to reconnect with his daughters. Aaliyah met him for coffee once. It was stilted. They had nothing to talk about. Zoe refused to see him. Carmen had remarried. She was kind to Marcus but distant. Their life together was ancient history. Marcus attended a support group for exonerees, listened to other men who'd lost decades to false convictions. They all said the same thing. The man who went in was not the man who came out. Marcus understood that now. The man who went into prison believed in the system, believed the truth mattered, believed justice was real. The man who came out knew better. This is the trial penalty. It's the difference between the sentence offered in a plea deal and the sentence imposed after trial. It exists in every courthouse in America. It's legal, it's systemic, it's by design. The Sixth Amendment guarantees the right to trial. But if exercising that right means risking your entire life, do you actually have that right? Or is it just words on paper? Marcus made a choice. He chose to believe in the system. He chose to assert his innocence. The system punished him for it, not because he was guilty, but because he disrupted the process. 97% of people take the plea, guilty or innocent. They take it because the alternative is too terrifying. And the system depends on that fear. If everyone demanded a trial, the system would collapse. There aren't enough judges, enough courtrooms, enough resources. So the system makes an example of the 3% who refuse. Marcus was that example. Marcus Jamison is free now, but he will never be whole. He lost 10 years, lost his family, lost his belief in justice. And across this country, there are thousands more. Men and women sitting in cells not because they're guilty, but because they couldn't afford to fight. Because the system offered them a deal: plead guilty or face annihilation. Most take the deal, the ones who don't become warnings. How many innocent people are sitting in a cell right now simply because they believe the truth would set them free? The answer is the problem. Stay with me, because this story isn't over. And until we fix the system that created it, it will keep happening over and over and over.